All right, so just like the title of the video says, how to not clean your motorcycle gas tank. I'm gonna share my stories of misfortunate events that I had. Basically, it all comes down to not knowing exactly what I'm doing when it comes to this kind of stuff, and hopefully, if I can, you know, save some people from making the same mistakes that I made. It'll save you some time and some money and a lot of frustration. So basically, so first off, here's the bike, and back to where it originally was. So those of you that last saw this, nothing's actually changed. The last thing I did was put the bag on, and I've been talking about making the side panel covers, and I got to still make a pan for underneath the seat, and just whatever else, cleaning up the bike. Well, here's basically what happened in one of my videos. For those of you that have been watching, I showed you how I dented in the side of the gas tank, which is all well and good. But when I did that, it flaked off all sorts of junk on the inside here. So, of course, the gas tank needed to be cleaned. I went online and watched a bunch of videos, and I have no doubt that I did a pretty good job cleaning the tank. I just thought that I needed to seal the tank in order to prevent rusting, which is not necessarily the case. As long as you clean the tank and you do it as good as possible, and then, get fuel in there and whatever as quickly as possible, then you can, prevent rusting. But really what happened ultimately was, way back, the bike sat because I cut the rear fender, and it just sat over the pandemic. I got busy with other stuff. So the carburetors got clogged up because it sat. So I took the carburetors out, got them cleaned. All the fuel lines, everything like that were pretty much fine. And I dented the gas tank in, and I cleaned it out myself, and I sealed it myself. Now, I used this stuff called Pour 15, which I have no doubt is a good product. I just don't think I let it dry long enough for the humidity that was, in my area. So the short of it is, I thought it was dry. I put 2 coats on. It says to dry for about 80 hours, I believe. And I let it dry for longer than that, but, it is what it is. I guess it wasn't long enough. So basically what happened is I got the bike all back together. I got the new the carburetors that were cleaned back in. Got the bike started. Everything was perfect. It was running awesome. And I rode it around for about a month and a half. And then I noticed that, over that month and a half, I was like, I feel like there's some hesitation. My mechanic was like, well, it's a 93, so he could be losing some compression and, whatever. It's an old bike. And I'm like, nah, there's no way, because it was running perfect before I decided to stop messing with it, right? So anyway, it got to the point where I just couldn't, it would barely idle, given any gas, and it would just flood out. So I was frustrated after all that work I put into it, and so I just took a break from the bike for a while. So that's why I've been off the internet for a while as far as videos are concerned. And then finally I said, all right, I got to get back at this. So I took the carbs out. I gave them back to my mechanic to clean again. And he looked at the carburetors and he was like, dude, what did you do to these carburetors? Like, I've never seen the gas so gunked up before. And I was like, I know, me too. I've never seen it. Like, they were only on for a month. How can it get clogged up that fast? And how can the gas gel up that fast? I know the gas nowadays is bad, but come on, it's not that bad. So anyway, we come to the realization that I didn't let the sealant inside dry fast enough, and it mixed with the gas, and it got all the way through all the fuel system into the carburetors, settled in the carburetors, and just really gummed it up. And he said he put it through the ultrasonic cleaner like 2 or 3 times. He had to let it sit overnight. He was like digging stuff out of the bowls. He said it was really bad. So either way, I had sent my tank out to a guy out in Oregon. So here's what the tank looks like, completely stripped. He was very adamant when he told me what they were going to do. They clean the inside of the tank as well as the outside of the tank. So they completely submerge it in a bath and they bake it. So what I had done to this tank previously was a DIY paint job. I just sprayed it myself, but I also did some Bondo work in here as well. So
whatever they do, it completely takes everything off. So they do a great job cleaning, but if you don't want the outside of your tank touched, well, unfortunately, this company is not for you. But for me, since the paint job was whatever, I was totally fine with them stripping everything off. The only other stipulation was underneath, they have to drill a hole at the bottom of the tank, which was right here, so they can completely drain the fluid that they put in there. So I had to have that re-welded. A friend of mine welds, so I got that taken care of, no problem. We also found a small little hole right here that I didn't see before. I wonder if it opened up during the cleaning process. He said the metal was really thin right there, so either way, we went over the whole thing, didn't see any other holes, so he just welded that shut and the hole that they drilled. Other than that, it looks awesome, so I'm gonna start painting it up.
So this is just a quick plug for the company that I used to clean the tank. I gave him a call. The guy's name is Bo, and he works for a company called Metal Works, paint and rust removal. I will, in the description below, I'll put the link to their website. 40 years of cleaning rust off of, cars, huge tanks, motorcycle tanks, whatever. And it's not just like, they spray it off or whatever it is. I mean, it's like full cars being dipped. So they have a really professional process there. And he was I talked to him for like 20 minutes one night when I first got him on the phone. Super knowledgeable, really, really nice guy. Tells you exactly what they do and exactly what they do not do. So they have you fill out a form when you send along with your tank, so they know exactly what they're going to do. You know exactly what's going to happen. And they were really communicative through email. So super happy with the work that he's done. They don't seal. I can tell you right now, they don't seal the tank, but they do put a rust inhibitor on there. So made me feel really good about getting the tank back and not having to work on it right away or else having it, rust up or whatever. So, but he'll explain all that. He's really a great guy. So if this is something you're interested in, I suggest you check out that link below in the description and give him a call. All right, so obviously all that junk made it from the old tank, my screw up, all the way to the carburetor. So that means everything in between the tank and the carburetor has all that junk in it as well. So I replaced everything at this point. The in-tank filter with the petcock, which is attached to the petcock. All the fuel lines, the inline fuel filter as well, the pump. And so I bought all new stuff, and once again, learned another frustrating, valuable lesson. So I bought all new stuff, with the exception of one fuel line and the pump. Now, everything was brand new except all the fuel lines except for one were OEM. One of them was back ordered, and I was like, yeah, whatever. It's just a straight line. With a 90-degree bend. The lines come all pre-bent because they all have to kind of fit into the small area that you have in here. And especially if you have everything stock, there's not a whole ton of room in there, and I got all my electronics and stuff, so I kind of have to work with what I got. So, but the line that goes from the pump to the carburetor basically goes straight up, and then it comes down and it takes a 90-degree turn. Well, I figured, I can just get a straight fuel line, throw an elbow on there, no big deal. So that's what I did, put it all together, and the pump, which was also brand new, was a Cheapo Depot Amazon special, and I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard a lot of people online say they don't like it. My mechanic was like, whatever, I've had good luck with that stuff, so, whatever. So it doesn't really matter. I put it on, got it all back together, put fuel in it, and after a few cranking starts or whatever, it finally kicked over and sounded like fantastic, better than new. And I was so excited. I didn't really have the tank bolted down. I didn't have the seat on. I just wanted to start it. I just wanted to hear it run. It's been like, close to a year now, I feel like, or maybe 8 months anyway, of not hearing my bike run. So sounded great. Could bring that thing all the way up to the rev limiter. It was fantastic. So I just shut it down and said, awesome. I have a little bit of time. I'm going to put it back together. I'm going to take a spin around the block just to ride the bike, so excited. So I got it all back together and let the bike idle for a few minutes, went and got changed and came back. Bike shut off. Went to go start it back up. barely started. Anytime I gave it gas, it would just conk out, and that was that. Tried to start it a whole bunch of times, wouldn't start, started really hard. Either way, it was idling kind of rough. Anytime I gave it gas, nothing. Just died. So pretty defeated. I let it sit, came back, tried to start it again, ran like an absolute top, like brand new again. Everything was fine. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I don't know. Let it idle, let it idle, let it idle. All of a sudden, you could hear the idle go from a good, strong idle down to a low idle. Went to give it gas, conked out. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. Did a bunch of tests, getting good spark. I was online asking questions about, like, what could it possibly be? Some people were like, well, check all your spark plugs. Somebody said check all 4 of your spark plugs. Now, I'm going to definitely come forward here and tell you guys, I really don't know a lot about this whole motorcycle mechanic stuff. And as embarrassing as this is to admit, when they said check all 4 spark plugs, I said, all 4, what are you talking about 4 spark plugs? I only have 2 cylinders. Yep, well, I didn't realize there was 4 spark plugs in my motorcycle, and I'll show you where they are. I went for the obvious ones. When I did the tune-up way long ago when I first bought the bike, here's a spark plug here, pretty obvious. Come around the other side of the bike. Here's the other spark plug, pretty darn obvious. Did not realize that there's another one right here, up on top. And there's another one kind of hidden right in here. Now, some people say you have to take the tank off to get them out. You don't really have to. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck, but you can pull this boot off. You can get your socket down inside there, and then when you undo the spark plug, if it doesn't stay inside your socket, just get a long telescoping magnet in there, and you can pull it right out. So, same with the other side. So, I said, no, there's no way I wouldn't have missed that. Oh, well, I definitely did, because when I took out the spark plugs, these two, the one on the other side that are obvious, were definitely newer, and these had really terrible gaps to them. And they were really old and thin and just super bad. So I figured, well, that's obviously the problem. They're heating up and it's not giving me the right spark. Nope, wasn't it. Either way, I got all 4 new spark plugs in there, so that obviously doesn't hurt. Thought maybe it was a bad wire somewhere. I wasn't getting good spark, but that's not the case. All the wires are in good shape. I took the spark plugs out. I put them up against the block while turning the engine over. Good spark on all of them. So that wasn't really the case. When I could get the bike to run good, I put a voltmeter on the battery, and it was charging at 13.8 to 14.1 when it was running good, and when it was running rough at idle, it was still getting a good charge. So the stator is doing its job. It's charging. It's getting good spark. It's getting good power. So my next option was like, okay, well, what's not new in the fuel line, I guess? What's not exactly Honda? Well, first off, that fuel line that I told you about that I made, this is what it looks like compared to the new one. So I've since replaced that, and I thought maybe that elbow that was there that I had attached on there, maybe the elbow was a thinner inside diameter, maybe it was too sharp of a turn, and it was restricting the fuel flow to the carburetor and not keeping the floats correct, and just, not getting enough fuel to the carburetors. So I have since replaced that line, and I got the original line in there, or the OEM line in there, and nope, that didn't fix the problem. So again, super frustrated. I said the only thing that's not original Honda part is the pump. So I had my hand on the pump and I couldn't really feel like it was doing anything. It was also getting really warm. Like, I don't know how warm fuel pumps are supposed to get, but it was pretty warm. So I unplugged. It wasn't making any noises, so whatever. So I unplugged the new pump. I plugged in my old pump, not hooked up to the bike because it's got all sorts of junk in it and everything like that, but I just wanted to see if it would make any noise. And then when I started the bike back up, it was clicking and pumping and making all sorts of noises and stuff. So I said, okay, well, the new pump's not really doing that. So what I did was I I unhooked all the fuel lines from the pump and then held it in my hand. And then when I turned the bike back on, there's still enough fuel to run for a few minutes anyway, left in the lines, even though the pump wasn't hooked up. and it was clicking and pumping and making all sorts of noise. So I plugged the old pump back in so I could kind of compare the two back and forth. And the old pump, first of all, definitely feels stronger than the cheap Amazon one. And then secondly, when it's hooked up, I don't think it's running right. The pump's not running right to actually push fuel through the system. And so that was my thought process. So a bunch of people online have said that they just say, well, get rid of the pump. You don't need it. This bike can be gravity fed because the tank's up top and the carburetor's on bottom. So the fuel has... Now, I probably am not gravity feeding it correctly because at this point, you don't need as much fuel line that I have. But as you can see, all I did was delete the pump. So I have the line coming in from the tank, the inline filter, and then it goes down to this round fuel line here, which is supposed to go into the fuel pump, which sits right over here at the end of my finger. And then you have another fuel line that comes out that goes into this connector, and then this is the pipe, the fuel line that I replaced that goes to the carburetor. So all I did was I disconnected the fuel line that comes out of the pump, and I just directly connected this fuel line that goes from the filter and right in. And the second I did that, I started the bike up. It farted a few times because there was probably some air in the line. And then once all the fuel got in, that's it. Runs awesome. Actually, I was able to take it for a spin. Ran a whole bunch of tests as far as really getting on it. And, trying to give it as much throttle as possible. No hesitation, no fuel loss, no farting. It has a little bit of backfiring going on, but that just could be, I think that's just a little air-fuel mixture adjustment. I'm going to try and mess around with that a little bit. Other than that, there's no lack of power. It runs just like I remember it running when I first bought the bike. So, the moral of all of this is, I did a terrible job cleaning the tank. I wish I just had a professional clean it the first time around. And don't skimp out on your parts. That cheap Amazon stuff, everybody online warned me. I should have listened to them. I can't remember how much it was. It was super cheap, like $30 or $20, something like that on Amazon. I know the OEM pump is I think a couple $100 or whatever. And I think I remember looking at that being like, I can find one that's old. What's it? It's just a pump, Well, it's not just a pump. Obviously it works. The Honda stuff works a lot better. So you don't need the fuel pump. And from what I understand from everybody online is the fuel pump is there as kind of like a safety. Say you crash the bike or maybe your floats get stuck. If you don't turn the gas off from the tank, then there's nothing stopping the fuel from running from your tank down into your carburetors and dripping out everywhere. So the pump, when the bike is off, gas cannot flow past the pump into the carburetors, right? So if you get into an accident or whatever. So I think I might still get the correct pump for the bike and get it on there, just because that's just the way the bike was originally set up, and that's what I want to do, So, but anyway, that's my tale of woe and my admission of not really knowing what I'm doing with all this kind of stuff. But now it runs. Let's hear it actually. So. Starts right up. Sounds good. No problems whatsoever. So pretty happy with that. And that's about it. So now that I have this video out of the way, I'm going to get back on to, cleaning the bike up and doing some stuff. I got some exhaust pipe wrap that I'm going to see how it looks on these pipes. Now these are stock pipes, so there's a shield here on this pipe and on this pipe here that I'm going to take off and see how it looks wrapped up. I'm not going to wrap the bigger end here, the muffler part, just because I've seen it done both ways, where I've seen just this part wrapped and I've seen the whole thing wrapped. And the whole thing wrapped looks a little funky, I think, personally. But as you can see up close now, the bike's been sitting for a little while. So, yep, I got a bunch of dust on there. But yeah, between the pipes, but the biggest thing is getting is cleaning up these panels here, right? So I haven't been doing anything to the bike because I'm like, listen, if it's not going to run, then why do any more work to it? So, but yeah, that's it. So hopefully, you learned something from this. And sorry it's such a long video, but that's everything that I've done up until now. But it's back running again, so I'm pretty excited about that. So anyway, yeah, stay tuned for more videos.